Hi YouTube, it's Catherine Michelle. I wanted to bring you up to date on what is happening with the Apple Valley Police Department, or actually what isn't happening with the Apple Valley Police Department. Detective Sergeant Gummert called me back, I believe it was on Thursday, and I recorded the conversation. And just so you guys know, it is legal to record conversations in Colorado as long as one of the people involved in the conversation is aware of the recording. That was me. And it's also legal to record an officer without their knowledge. So there are no laws being broken. I didn't do anything illegal or underhanded or anything like that. And in fact, toward the end, you'll hear Detective Sergeant Gummert state that I can quote him any way I want, but I don't want to do that. So I would rather play for you what was stated. So I'm going to play this and then interject commentary along the way. And so here we go. And this is going to pick up. I had already answered the call and we were already speaking before I got the computer going and had the recording started. So here we go. But is there any particular reason why the case will not be opened?
Yeah, I know we talked a little bit, a few weeks ago, and for us, really kind of where we are at is what we do in this investigation or any significant investigation, regardless of the matter, is, we have people who are very sharp and very good at what they do, look at the case and just kind of come up with their own independent, telling, you look at it, see what you think, you look at it, and have people then come together and say, all right, what do y'all think? Is it independent upon anybody else? And, at the end of the day, everybody that was involved in the case, felt that we had done everything we could do and that the case should be closed. So, that hasn't changed. So I guess that's about the best way I can put it. So it's just what the experts looking at.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. Because I would like to point out that he stated that at the end of the day, they felt they did everything they could do to bring a resolution to the case, but that's not true. They didn't investigate anyone else. They made up a decision was made by the chief within 2 hours of the crime even being reported, way before they even had any results back from the labs. And to remind everybody, the police left that day with 6 casings, 3 bullet fragments only. And after testing was done, all 3 of those fragments had Kamel's blood on them. When they left that house and had already predetermined David had killed his wife and daughter and then committed suicide, they determined that without any physical evidence whatsoever. So no, they did not do everything that they could do in order to reach their decision.
And they all agree that the investigation had reached its completion.
Okay, but however, and I guess this is kind of where, my big question is that it's not an opinion, it's not my opinion, it's not even your expert's opinion, it's not even you guys' opinion. It is a fact that skull piece that belonged to David has and shows and proves multiple blunt force trauma. He was hit so hard it went from one side of the skull, the impression, clear onto the inside of the skull. So obviously someone who is going to be committing suicide cannot do that to themselves. So with that piece of evidence, how can the case then not be looked at in a different light? That's my big question.
Well, I guess I'll answer your question the best way I can here, and that is, look at this analogy. You gave me a little bit of your background. You have a medical background. And clearly many cases that you worked on that were significant where you live. And, for us, the answer I'm going to give you is myself and the other persons that were here on the scene, analyzing the data from the first call to the end, are the ones that just believe that we are where we need to be, and certainly you.
Okay, did you catch that? He says he wants to believe that they are where they need to be. A case shouldn't be dependent upon what your belief system is or where your beliefs lie. The case outcome should depend on where the evidence has pointed to. And despite the fact that the evidence points to David being murdered, they want to go with, they want to believe they're correct.
And others are always welcome to, your opinion and your research. That's great. That's what makes America great. But at the same time, it's just we're confident that we have exhausted all evidence, and that's why we're going to keep it close.
Okay, and again, I'm questioning because it's if it were true, and
hold on 1 second, please.
Okay.
Just 1 second.
Okay, and here he gets a call and he has to take care of some other business. And then he'll come back. And at the time, I wasn't sure what he was doing. So, again, he deflects a lot. But here we go.
I'm sorry. Are you talking to me or somebody else?
Yeah, Casey, I'll have Casey. I'm on the phone, but what's up?
I'm sorry. Are you talking to me or somebody else?
Yeah, Casey, I'll have Casey come down. Hey, Casey, you have to go deal with this in the lobby for the fusion. So they didn't know who to see, so. Thank you. Sorry about that, I just had another issue to take care of.
That's okay.
So, like I said, Captain Michelle, I mean, the hard part about cases like these is that, it's just, there's a lot of information that's out there, especially with the beauty of the internet. And, for us, like I said, you're a professional, and you've dealt with, I'll use this analogy because I think it's a valid analogy, is that in your professional career, over the course of many cases that you worked on and things that you dealt with firsthand, at the end of the day, you have to be confident with your decision making. And as you know, as a professional, there's always going to go, okay, Michelle, you should have done this way, you should have this way, and that's just the nature of the job that we're all in. And for us, we understand that there's going to be people that don't agree, that think that we're clearly missing significant facts in their eyes, and that's great, that's fine. I mean, everyone's entitled to what they believe, but I can't be more clear. For us, we believe that we are comfortable with where the case is at, and it's going to remain close.
Well, and again, since you're correct in the professional aspect of things, however, in my decision making in the cases I have had to deal with, if I was wrong, then I had to be professional enough to say, okay, let me go back and revisit this. What do you guys have to show me?
Yep.
And and here's the thing, though, too. The main thing is that the investigators did not see, nor did the medical examiner see.
I'm going to jump in here before we continue on to what the investigators did or did not see, or what they're actually refusing to even commit themselves to. Going back, professionalism is not about saying, I came to a conclusion, that's it, end of story. No one is right 100% of the time. Not even the Apple Valley Police Department. Nobody. Not myself. Nobody. If we were perfect, we'd be walking on water without the help of hovercrafts. We're not perfect. We make mistakes. And it seems to me like the Apple Valley Police Department is not even open to admitting they know they made a mistake, but they're not going to admit they made a mistake, and they are not going to correct that mistake. So let's continue here.
The multiple blunt force trauma, and if they didn't see that, or did they see that? Did they see the blunt force trauma on David's skull? This is everything in your reports I've read in that, and I don't want to sound like I'm accusing, because sometimes when I get excited, it sounds like I'm yelling, and I'm not. But
no, you're totally cool.
So do your investigators see the multiple blunt force trauma on that skull piece?
Well, the best way I can answer that question in terms of damage done to, the parties is myself, along with several other investigators, were at the actual autopsies where the bodies were examined by the medical examiner. And so we were right there as they were being examined. So, us, as we work hand in hand with the doctor, anything that's going to be observed is not only observed by them, but by our detective as well. So.
Okay, did you catch that? He's not even answering the question. He's just saying that he was there, and whatever would have been observed, they would have seen it. But he's also saying he didn't see it. He did not say, I did not see this blunt force trauma. He's saying, whatever would have been there, we would have seen it. So he's answering the question by saying it was there, obviously, because he's not denying the evidence, but he's not outright saying we saw the evidence there. So either they saw it and they chose to ignore it, or they missed it. Either way, either option, they need to correct that, but they're not going to.
Okay.
In terms of how the autopsies went, I was there. I observed the actual autopsy. So for me, I'm comfortable with the medical examiner's, job and how they went with what they did. So.
Okay, but she stated that.
He's comfortable with the medical examiner's job. Again, he didn't answer the question. And the medical examiner, Dr. Jessica Lelinski, who now works out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, clearly states that there were no projectiles found that killed David. She says that in the autopsy report. But she also states that she sees no other evidence of injury to the bodies other than the gunshot wounds and the obvious dog scavenging. So that is a lie. That is an absolute, complete lie, because we have the photographic proof that the blunt force trauma is there. We'll continue.
But she states that there was no other damage done to the bodies, but you see, I showed you that photo. So, and did you see? It's kind of like you're not quite answering my question, so I kind of want to get it. Did you see, or do you agree that there is blunt force trauma to that skull piece?
I guess after reviewing all the data you provided, for me, I agree with our conclusion, and I don't agree with what you're asserting. I guess if that's hopefully a better way to answer your question.
Okay, so basically, if I'm understanding you correctly then, is that you are not saying that you see the multiple blunt force trauma?
I'm answering that what I see is that we completed a thorough investigation, and that I have not seen anything to date, including the information you provided me, that gives me any cause for concern that we missed something and that it needs to be reopened.
That is troublesome. They see it. The photo that we have and we provided to them came from the police department. And he's just saying that it doesn't cause him concern. The multiple blunt force trauma, he's not denying it's there. He is just simply stating that he doesn't think it's of any concern to the investigation. The fact that David was murdered and his head was then, scalp part was then cut off after death, more than likely, that doesn't concern them. They're content with their conclusion. Really? Now I'm concerned and worried. We'll continue.
So there's nothing that I've seen from anybody, including your data, that changes where I'm at. And that's
okay. Well, I mean, and I hope you understand that causes me great concern, because that it's not my opinion. This is evidence your office provided us. It's photos that were provided to us, and this is evidentiary photographic proof. There is blunt force trauma and a cutting away of that skull from David. He could not do that to himself if he is dead. And if it doesn't cause you guys to question and want to reopen the case, then does that lead me down the path of either this truly, because you and I discussed this before about people saying it's a government hit, and I've been fighting against that forever. But it's not leaving any other option to say, hey, either your department is covering this up, or it truly was a hit, and nobody's going to tell the truth,
or they're totally
because
inept.
They've been told not to tell the truth. There's no other option. I mean, your proof, your physical evidence, the lack of what is included in those reports, well, and even lack of and roundabout ways of what Dr. Lelinski, she stated in her reports, where she says there's no recovery of any bullets for David. But the problem is that she says she saw no other evidence of injury to the bodies when these photographs prove her statement is a lie. So,
well, I think if I always prefer these conversations face to face. I'm kind of an old school person now. I always hate talking over the phone. But for me, I mean, I'm just gonna flat out tell you, if I were looking at you face to face, I can't reiterate it more than I already have in terms of my confidence of all the people that worked on this case, from anybody that was involved in this case. I'm very confident in the work that they've done, and I'm confident that the conclusion we reached is one that doesn't bear changing, and it doesn't bear reopening an investigation for.
Okay, then just so I can tell everybody then is that even though the proof is there and the photo is there, that shows without, I mean, I'm sorry, it's not my opinion. It is not anybody's opinion. It's there that there is blunt force trauma. You can see impressions in that skull. And that's not a makeup. It's not a lie. It's not making something up. It's not, going, oh, oops, that's dog slobber. It's like, no, there's an impression of a ratchet market, at least, and for a six-sided socket, be it a crowbar or something else, that is evident within that skull. And so with that being there, what you were saying, just so I understand, and I don't want to misquote you, is that you guys, the Apple Valley Police Department is stating that they're not going to acknowledge or deny that they see that evidence, and you're just satisfied with what you've done. Is that correct?
Well, I think, Michelle, ultimately it's, you're free to quote me however you want.
Well, no, I want to quote.
Choice.
No, I want to quote what you say. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I don't think that's how it should be done.
Well, then if you don't want to put my words in my mouth, then here's what you can quote me on. The investigation is closed. We will not reopen the investigation. And that's, I guess, the best quote I can give you is the case is closed. And there's nothing that you or anyone else have introduced to us over the course of the past years that changes that quote. It's closed.
Okay, so
So I'm again, I'm appalled at the fact that they see and they know that that piece of evidence, that photo showing David's scalp fragment, his skull fragment, shows blunt force trauma, shows that that piece of skull fragment was cut away from his head. Both of those are proof that he was murdered. And to them, that's not evidence enough to reopen the case. They're confident that they have their right decision. Really? Really? Apple Valley, Minnesota, if I were you, keep your doors locked. Can't trust them. And this it's not about a personal attack on Sergeant Gummert, because as you can tell, he's being very nice. And he did take the time to talk to me. However, being nice doesn't mean you're doing the right thing. He's not doing the right thing. The entire department has not done the right thing. Not by David, not by Kamel, and not by Rania. And not by the extended family and friends of the Crowleys. For some reason, they refuse to look at their own evidence. And they refuse to reopen or look at it again. But that doesn't mean we're going to stop. We're going to continue. I told them, and like I told you guys before, the fight has only just begun. This is not over by a long shot. This is where we need to dig our heels in more, and we need to constantly put this in front of them. But let's finish up the conversation I had with him.
So including that, I know I'm trying to pin you down, because to me this is the vital information. This is the piece of evidence that proves David himself was murdered, and these murderers are walking free. These murderers who have threatened me and somebody else and some of my other friends, which I don't take kindly. So if I'm going to be upset about this, you better believe it, because if they come after me, then you guys are now going to be liable. Yeah. But I'm telling you, this is not a joke. I don't take this as 1 ounce of being funny.
Not one bit.
But it goes down to that piece of evidence, and that 2 people that and I've sent you their photos, I've sent you the proof of their animals, I've sent you the evidence of that skull damage, I've even given you the tools that are consistent with those impressions. So basically, and that was David's skull, he was beat in the head, he was obviously murdered. So despite that, the case will still remain closed. Is that correct?
Yes, the case will stay closed. Correct.
Okay, well, I'm going to still continue, and I'm sorry, and please don't take it personally. And one of these days I really do. My goal is to actually come up and speak with you guys, like you said, face to face. I would much rather do it face to face. I think, you get a better understanding of the person you're talking to when you see body language and everything like that. And so I will not stop on this. I am going to send this I've sent it to everybody I can think of, and now I'm sending it to the congressman, and I'm going to be then giving it to the news stations. And I've sent it to the Dakota County Attorney, which I'm sure you're already aware of. I've sent it to the Minnesota State Attorney, and I'm going to send it to the mayor and to the news stations and to the people who have written the articles online. I have contacted almost everybody, just because the man was murdered. If he was guilty, trust me, I wouldn't care. I would be all on you guys' side saying, you know what, they're right, but he was murdered, and it's proven. But truly, thank you for getting back to me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, again, I apologize for the delay, and again, thank you for your time. It's been nice to talk to you. I wish you the best. You certainly have my contact information. If down the road you need to contact me for any reason, please feel free.
I absolutely will. Thank you so much, and you have a great day.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
There you have it, out of his own mouth. They're not denying that the evidence is there. They will not admit or deny any of the evidence. All they are saying is that we came to a decision and we're going to stick to our decision regardless. It doesn't matter. And they're saying that no one has given them any evidence or any proof to make them think anything different. If David's skull fragment that has multiple blunt force trauma and evidence of being cut away from his head is not evidence to them that he was murdered. A dead person cannot cut their head off. A dead person doesn't, I mean, the force that these impressions left, he was hit extremely hard. He probably was rendered unconscious, if not by the first hit, then probably by at least the second hit. There are at least 10 distinct blows to the head. He couldn't have done this, so he's going to beat himself in the head, so they say, which is impossible. Cause impressions to go from the top of the skull to be imprinted on the inside. Cause bleeding of some sort, on hemorrhaging or whatever, on the inside of his brain. Then he's going to shoot himself in the head, and then he's going to cut off this piece of scalp. I mean, it scares me. It scares me that these officers are allowed to not look at evidence. I'm frightened for Apple Valley, Minnesota. You guys, this is your police department. These are the people who were sworn to protect you, and they didn't protect their citizens before. What makes you think they're going to protect you now? Why is it covered? Why do they refuse to look into it? Why do they refuse to reopen it? And I did. I sent them Sean Wright's information, and I sent them Danny August Mason's information. Both of them had motive. Sean Wright's motive was he was on Facebook. His little text and spiel is all over. You know, don't put out the rise because you're going to send me to prison. You don't think that's a motive? What about Danny August Mason, who was not cooperating with David at all? David had been trying to get him to release whatever it was he felt he in the legalities of things. When you're a writer and you're getting stuff done, and I'm not even going to go into it. You need to research that yourself, for those, and not for those who are listening, but for those who want to argue this point. I am a published author. I know what I'm talking about. So you have to oftentimes go to an extreme to get a release. This is what David was doing, trying to get from Danny. Danny knew that he could hold up David, and was holding up David on purpose. And then he had the nerve to show up to Ranya's birthday party. My words, my opinion. And then you wonder why there was tension. The tension wasn't between David and Kamel and Ranya. The tension was between David, Danny August Mason, Sean Wright, Mason Hendricks, Dan Jr., and who knows, could it be Dan Sr.? Don't know. But, and not only that, Danny August Mason, not only was he angry and totally ignoring signing off on the release, but Danny August Mason also posted a photo of his dog. Now, we know on the blue blanket, and it's even written in the officer's reports, multiple white dog hair. It's everywhere. It's all over. Now, yes, Paleo had white fur on his belly, but that was it. The rest of him was brown and dark brown and a reddish brown. He was not all white. Who has an all-white pit bull that was trained to fight and kill? Danny August Mason. These things alone should have sent the police in that direction to at least investigate that angle. They didn't do it. You know, Danny had motive. Danny has a dog that matches. Sean had motive. And Sean also had a daughter at the time who was in grade school. Those footprints are not footprints. Those are kindergarten crafts. So the circumstantial evidence against others in this case is very strong. Now, keep in mind that there's also DNA and blood and prints and blood and stuff that don't belong to David. They don't belong to Kamel. They don't belong to Ranya. They belong to the murderer or murderers. So the police have physical evidence that they could easily rule out or rule in other people, but they didn't even look into it. They're not going to look into it because according to them, they did a great job. No, it was lackadaisical at best. At best. So, to say I'm disappointed, again, is an understatement. This family truly deserves justice. It is being covered up. It is being pushed under the rug. But why? Who truly is behind it? We know Eric Sayward. And if any of you haven't watched his little video about the first time I met David Crowley, you need to watch it. Not to give the man views, but so you can see how creepy this guy was. And not just him, but his cameraman. There's a point, they're interviewing David at a park on the 4th of July. This camera guy says, "Hey, where's your daughter? Let's go meet you. I want to meet your daughter." And David looks at them, looks back. He stands then, puts his body between this man and his family and says, "No, they're not comfortable." Does that sound like a man who's going to kill his family? Or does that sound like the person who's doing the interviewing has an ulterior motive? It's creepy. So we've got people that they should have at least interviewed, but they did not. Looked into and ruled out, but they did not. Sean motherfucking Wright. His words, not mine. What he calls himself, because he thinks he's all that, he's all bad, and he's going to, threaten everybody. We have Sean motherfucking Wright. We've got Danny August Mason. We have Mason Hendricks. We have Dan Jr. We have Dan Sr. We have Eric Sayward and others. These are just the names off the top of my head that should have been looked into and ruled out, but were not. And a few of those, there's more than enough circumstantial evidence that the cops should have put them on their radar right away. But they didn't. These guys lied to the police during their investigations. They lied during the Netflix sloppumentary, as I forget who coined that. But it's truly a disgrace that it was even allowed on Netflix. They've all lied. They all had motive. And David had none. The police could pin no motive. They had no motive for him in their reports as well. But yet they're content, even though they have proof. His skull was basically sustained so much damage that it probably killed him before they shot him. But the police don't care. And again, why?